lot of different things today, but I did want to cover this real quick because I just think it's kind of ridiculous that this is being talked about. It's more diversion from what we actually need to be focusing on. But let's take a look, anyways. AOC hits Republicans as creepy weirdos for obsessing over her trip to Florida. So, if you guys have not been aware of this, AOC and her boyfriend decided to take a trip down to Florida, and she was caught sitting at a table without a mask on. I think that's typical, though. Like, anywhere you go, even in places where restaurants are open, but you are supposed to mask up, you can sit down at a table and have your mask off, especially in a restaurant. Plus, I mean, COVID is extremely hard to spread out in the open and outdoor situations, which we saw from things like the BLM protests and things like that. So yeah, let's go over this a little bit. AOC's getting some flack here for her trip to Florida with her boyfriend, where they vacationed over the holiday vacation. It says AOC hits Republicans as creepy weirdos for obsessing over her trip to Florida. Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez called Republicans who attacked her for taking a trip to Miami creepy weirdos and said they were mad they cannot date her. A lot of this is probably true. I don't know if it's a good excuse for like this or a diversion from, actually saying something about the masking, but still, I mean, it's pretty true. Most Republicans are kind of mouth breathers over her. So, Miss Ocasio-Cortez was photographed with her boyfriend at a restaurant in Miami earlier this week, not wearing a mask, while sitting at the table. And again, that's the general consensus, is that even in states where there are mask mandates, if you go to a restaurant and sit at a table, then you can take your mask off because you can't eat through a mask. Not to mention they were sitting outside. At its core, the row is about differing responses to COVID-19. Ms. Ocasio-Cortez's home state of New York has taken aggressive measures to combat the virus that causes COVID-1. I think COVID-19 is what they meant there. And New York City has a vaccine mandate. Conversely, Florida Governor Ron DeSantis has taken a much more lax approach, opposing mask mandates and keeping businesses mostly open. He's also signed legislation restricting vaccine mandates. All of this has made him a darling of the right and a potential candidate for president. The conservative National Review noted that Ms. Ocasio-Cortez's visit came despite a surge of the Omicron variant in New York, even though Florida has seen a spike in COVID-19 as well because of travel. In response to the trip, conservatives made #AOC loves DeSantis trend on Twitter, but Ms. Ocasio-Cortez criticized conservatives for their obsession with her. In particularly, she responded to a tweet from former Trump advisor Steve Cortez, who criticized her boyfriend for wearing sandals. The tweet goes, well, first of all, Steve Cortez's part is, if leftists like AOC actually thought the mandates and masking worked, they wouldn't be frolicking in free Florida. Number 2, her guy is showing his gross pale male feet in public, not a pool beach, with hideous sandals. 0 for 2. Okay, this is really dumb. Really, 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 really dumb. Because, first of all, who gives a fuck if he's wearing sandals? That's so dumb. And they're in Florida. A lot of people in Florida wear sandals on a pretty regular basis. I mean, it's pretty freaking warm down there. And I don't see anything wrong with those sandals. They're not like flip-flops even. They're sandals. And so AOC responded, if Republicans are mad they can't date me, they can just say that instead of projecting their sexual frustrations onto my boyfriend's feet. And it's starting to get old, ignoring very obvious, strange, and deranged sexual frustrations that underpin the Republican fixation on me, women, and LGBT plus people in general. The people clearly need therapy, won't do it, and use politics as their outlet instead. It's really weird. I do tend to agree with this to a certain extent because you do see a lot of like Republicans saying things about like pedophiles and stuff like that, and then they're getting caught, like Matt Gaetz with his drama that's going on with the controversy that's surrounding him and his sex trafficking 17-year-olds, and not to mention Trump and Clinton and a bunch of other people going to visit Epstein's Island. So we have that as well. And then they talk about that they're the QAnon thing with the whole pedophile thing. So, and then you've got people who talk against LGBT plus things, and then they're caught in gay bars and things like that. Like you have everything from prosperity preachers to politicians in that situation. So it's just kind of funny. It's definitely a projection by a lot of these people. Furthermore, if Republicans are mad they can't date me, or they can just say instead of projecting their sexual frustrations on my boyfriend's feet, she said, "Ya creepy weirdos," which is kind of funny. She also said that many of the men criticizing her need therapy and won't go to it. So, this is true. One thing that I do have to say, though, that I wish that she would have done is not ignored the fact that they were saying anything about masking. Because this is an obvious thing that she could have said, that, there's no reason for her to be wearing a mask at a table at a restaurant because you're sitting down with your significant other. The COVID strains do not proliferate as much in situations where you're outdoors. And even in places where there are mask mandates but restaurants are open, once you sit down at the restaurant, at the table, you don't need a mask anymore. There's nobody, you're going to have to eat eventually and things like that. There's no reason to be wearing a mask. So this is, we'll talk about that in just a second, Rome. There's no reason for AOC to be wearing a mask in this picture, and the fact that they're talking about her boyfriend's feet is just kind of creepy. I mean, it's kind of weird. Why would they even bring that up? First of all, this Steve Cortez guy, it lessens his point, even if there was one about AOC not wearing a mask outdoors at a restaurant, sitting at a table. That's a big nothing burger in itself, but he even lessens that point by going into making personal attacks on her boyfriend, because you can tell these guys are jealous. You can tell that they have this love-hate relationship with her. Like they are attracted to her, and it makes them feel weird and bad, but they don't know how to respond to it. They definitely need some sort of mental help. They need to get rid of this toxic masculinity that they have surrounding them and their ideas. And the hatred for AOC is a lot of it is a mask for the fact that they find her attractive, and it's really disgusting in ways, and it's really funny in other ways. So yeah, I just wanted to discuss that a little bit because I think it's kind of funny, especially when we have news that we're going to talk about that's actually important, dealing with AOC's counterpart, MTG, Marjorie Taylor Greene, which we'll discuss here in a moment. But yeah, what do you guys think? I mean, do you think that she should be in hot water or being canceled like they always try to do because of not wearing a mask while sitting at a table at a restaurant outdoors? I really think this is a nothing burger. And I think it's just a way for Republicans to use a culture war to take away from the points that are important, take away from the things that are important. Yep, they just tried to nitpick a bunch of BS. That's totally true, Rome Freak.